Long ago, in the flourishing land of Umutor, there lived a man named Obire. He was a man of striking presence, tall and dignified, with a voice that rolled like a distant thunder. People in Umutor often said that Obire didn't need to speak to command respect. His stature and his quiet authority were enough. His village admired him, not only for his knowledge and strength, but for the way he managed his household. It was whispered among the elders that Obire's family was the image of harmony and success, a reflection of the prosperity and peace that graced the entire land of Umutor. Obire lived with two wives, Titi and Uri. Titi, his first wife, was known throughout Umutor for her beauty and grace, with a gentle laugh and a warm heart that drew people to her. She bore 3 children for Obire, 2 sons, Efe and Ochukwu, and a daughter, Omotiti. Her children were her pride, each carrying pieces of her heart with them. Efe and Ochukwu were the pillar of her joy. Their intelligence and bravery, like twin flame, lighting her soul. Omotiti, with her striking beauty and quiet strength, was her mirror image. Titi's love for them was as boundless as the sky that stretched above Umutor, and she prayed daily for their happiness and success. Uri, Obire's second wife, had a unique energy. She was lively, fiercely independent, and very clever. Her beauty was as fierce as her nature, and Obire had once drawn to her strength. Uri had given him 3 daughters, Onome, Ogenemine, and Ogenero. Though Onome, Ogenemine, and Ogenero were just as smart and diligent as their half-brothers, they grew up knowing that in the eyes of their father and their community they held a different place in the family. In the land of Umutor, daughters were cherished, but sons were honored as the strength and continuity of a family. Uri, once hopeful for a son, now carried a quiet pain, aware that Obire's pride was often focused on Titi and her children. In the beginning, Titi and Uri had been close. They walked side by side, sharing the burden and joy of daily life. The early years has been filled with laughter and companionship. The two wives united in their love for their children and their respect for one another. Their relationship was once the cornerstone of the family's happiness. But as the children grew and Obire's pride shifted more towards his sons, a subtle change began to creep between the co-wives, and a tension that neither of them could ignore, though both tried. Obire was a man of vision, a believer in the power of education. He had sent all his 6 children to the finest school he could afford, regardless of gender. Every morning, the children, Efe, Ochukwu, Omotiti, Onome, Ogenemine, and Ogenero, would walk down the winding village path together, their laughter filling the air. The people of Umutor will smile at the sight of them, seeing the future in the bright faces of Obire's children. In school, Efe and Ochukwu, naturally intelligent, and leadership quickly made them favorite among the teachers. Efe, the eldest, had a way of commanding attention, his hand always the first to rise in answer to questions. Ochukwu, though quieter, was equally sharp and often matched his brother in cleverness. Together, they became admired leaders, the boys whom others admired to be like. Omotiti, with her grace and kindness, was equally well regarded. Her beauty matched by her intelligence. She had a natural gift for bringing people together, bridging the gaps that often arose among their peers. Onome, Ogenemine, and Ogenero were equally diligent, but they grew up feeling the weight of being daughters in a land that had sun, in higher esteem. Though they excel in school, they notice how their teachers' praise often linger longer on their brother Ife. The oldest of the sisters was especially aware of her father's pride in Ife and Ochukwu, a pride he rarely showed in their presence. She bore this silently, though her heart ached. One evening, as Titi and Uri ground millet by the fire, the tension that had been simmering for years finally boiled over. The cracking of the flames was as the only sound in the quiet night, until Uri's voice broke the silence. Must you always act as if your children are above mine, Titi? Uri's voice was stacked, each word weighed down by years of frustration. Titi looked up, surprise in her eyes. No, I don't, Uri, she replied gently. Obire love his home. I have never claimed any special place for my children, she said softly. But Uri shook her head in disagreement, her face shadowed by years of unspoken pain. Perhaps not in words, Titi, but your son walk with pride each day. A pride that reminds my daughter of their place. They knew they hold their father's heart. Why my daughters? My daughters have only me, Uri said with tears on her face. For a moment, Titi resolve softened, a flicker of understanding passing over her face. Yes, that is true, she said, almost in a whisper. Yet the words hung in the air, deepening the bitterness in Uri's heart. Unbeknownst to them, Titi, ever perspective, had overheard their conversation from a corner of the hut. The words struck her like a weight upon her chest, a seed of worry that would stay with her, coloring her view of the world as she grew. As the day passed, the family continued their routines, though the harmony they once shared seems to have become a fragile thread, stretching thinner with each passing day. Obire, aware of the tension but unwilling to address it, hoped it would dissipate on its own. One morning, Obire gathered the children at the gate before they left for school. He gave each of them a word of encouragement. His hand rested on Ife's shoulder with a special pride. Uri watched from a distance, her daughter by his side, noticing the spark in her husband's eyes as he looked upon his sons. She felt the sting of his favoritism as sharply as if it has been spoken aloud. As the children made their way down the familiar path to school, Titi glanced at Onome, who was walking more slowly than usual. Her face shadowed. Titi's young heart ached for her half-sister. Are you all right, Onome? Titi asked, her voice soft. Yes, I am fine. Onome replied with a forced smile, but Titi could see the sadness in her eyes. Though she wanted to comfort her sister Onome, but Titi felt divided. Her loyalty to her mother clashed with her closeness to her sisters. Later that week, Titi and Uri met at the river, their daily task of fetching water bringing them together in spite of the growing distance between them. The air was thick with silence as they knelt by the river edge, dipping their pot into the cold water. Uri, our children are growing taller each day, Titi said, hoping to ease the tension between them. Uri gave a tight smile. Her thought far from the water she collected. She could not shake the image of Obire's gaze following Efe and Ochukwu with pride, a look he rarely gave her daughters. The bitterness in her heart had become an ache she carried with her each day. Is everything all right? Titi asked, sensing the sadness in her co-wife's silence. No, Titi, Uri said finally, her voice a mixture of sorrow and defiance. It is not all right. It is easy to find peace when your children are the favored ones. But my daughters, they must live each day knowing they are second in their father's heart. The words struck Titi deeply, and for a moment she felt a pang of guilt. Before she could respond, Other women from the village arrived, and the moment passed, leaving a lingering sense of unease between the co-wives. That evening, the children gathered to play a game called Kele Kele, a traditional game that filled their night with laughter. Efe and Ochukwu paired up as usual, and Onome Ogenemine and Ogenero formed the opposite team. Titi watched from the sidelines, her heart divided as she shared for her brothers. Onome played with strong focus, her eyes watching the board closely. She made a smart move and won a round. But Efe and Ochukwu just laughed, treating her win like a joke. Even though they meant no harm, Onome and her sister felt hot, like they weren't taken seriously even in the game. Ogenemine looked down to hide the sadness in her eyes, while Onome coiled her hands into a tight grip, her face tense with frustration. Later that night, Titi found Uri sitting alone by the corner of the house, her face reflecting a mixture of sadness and determination. "Uri," Titi said gently, "I know your heart is heavy. We were once close. What has just come between us?" Uri looked up, her eyes filled with unshed tears. "It is not you, Titi," she whispered. "It is a word that tells me my daughters are less because they are not sons. Each day, I see Obire's pride in your sons, while my daughters, they have only me." Titi reached for Uri's hand, her voice soft with empathy. "Your daughters are precious, Uri. Let us remind Obire of this together. Perhaps he does not realize the pain he has caused." But Uri pulled her hand away, her face hardened. "No, Titi. It is easy for you to say such thing because your sons already hold his heart. I must find my own way to make sure my daughters are seen and valued," Uri said angrily. Titi felt the sting of Uri's word, and a helpless sorrow settled in her heart. She feared that the bitterness growing within Uri will lead to something irreversible. Yet, she knew her own influence over Obire was limited. He was a man set in his ways, and his pride in his sons has blinded him to the needs of his daughters. As the days turned into weeks, the tension of Obire's household deepened. The children, once inseparable, began to spend less time together, and even their games lost the easy laughter they once shared. Titi, feeling the strain between her parents, tried to bridge the gap between her half-sisters and brothers. She would sit with Onome, Ogenemine and Ogenero, listening to their stories and dreams. But she also knew that any visible closeness with them might stir jealousy from her brothers, who were beginning to notice the tension too. One day, Efe and Ochukwu saw Titi playing with their half-sister by the river bank. Ochukwu especially felt a stab of resentment. He loved his sisters, but he could not ignore how their father always stressed their bond as sons. "Father has big plans for us," Ochukwu often said to Efe, repeating Obire's words that they were meant to carry on the family legacy, to lead, and to be strong. In a rare moment of frustration, Ochukwu whispered to Efe, "Sometimes it feels like Titi is more loyal to Uri's daughters than to us." Efe gave his brother a thoughtful look. "Don't be harsh, Ochukwu. Titi is just trying to keep peace. But perhaps she needs a reminder of where her loyalty lies," said Ochukwu. That evening, Obire gathered the family to share news. A messenger had arrived from a neighboring village, announcing a festival that celebrated unity and family ties. Obire planned to attend with his family, seeing it as a chance to reaffirm the image of harmony he wished to project. Excitement filled the air as the family began preparation. The festival was known for its dances, stories, and competitions. In Akalamudo, such festivals were not just social gathering, they were opportunity for families to showcase their strength, talent, and pride. Uri's heart beat with new hope. This festival was a chance to prove her daughter's worth, to show Obire and perhaps herself that her daughters were not second to anyone. She began to teach Onome Ogenemi and Ogenero, a traditional dance that symbolized courage and grace. A dance usually performed by sons. Every evening, they would practice a dance, and Nuri's determination became a guiding force. Her daughter's movement growing more confident with each passing night. Titi watched from afar, admiration mingling with a sense of foreboding. She admired Uri's resilience, but she feared that this attempt to prove herself would only deepen the divide in their family. Titi too prepared her children for the festival. Efeanochukwu practiced a ceremonial spear dance, one traditionally reserved for young men on the brink of adulthood. Omotiti prepared a gentle, graceful dance, her movement mirroring the fluidity of the river itself. On the day of the festival, the village square buzzed with excitement. Families from all over the region gathered in a vibrant attire, their voices and laughter filling the air. Obire's family arrived together. He is dressed in fine woven fabrics that showed the family's worth. As they walked, villagers whispered and pointed, admiring the grace and beauty of Obire's wives and children. The sight of the family united, despite the undercurrent of tension, impressed the onlookers. When it was time for the performances, Ife and Ochuko took their place at the center of the crowd. With the rhythmic drumming echoing around them, they began their spear dance. Their movements were precise and powerful. Each step calculated, each strike and leap a testament of their strength. The crowd murmured in Awe, and Obire's chest swelled with pride as he watched his sons display the vigor and discipline he had instilled in them. Next, it was Omotiti's turn. As she moved gracefully, the crowd watched in rapt silence. Her dance was like a story, graceful, beautiful, and filled with emotions. She seemed to float, embodying the elegance and harmony her mother had always cherished. Her performance ended with applause, and Titi felt her heart swell with pride. A smile lightened her face. Finally, Uri stepped forward with her daughters. Onome, Ogenemine, and Ogenero took their places, and as the drummer began a fierce beat, the guests moved with bold, exact steps. Their dance was unlike anything the villagers had seen from daughters before. A strong, defiant rhythm that showed their strength and determination. The crowd murmured, some with admiration, others with surprise. And as they understood the message Uri's daughter were sending. As the dance ended, Uri looked to Obire, her gaze fierce. She hoped to see pride or at least recognition in his eyes. But Obire's face was set in a troubled frown. The crowd reaction was mixed. Some clapped enthusiastically, moved by the guest's courage, while others whispered among themselves, disapproving of such a bold display from daughters. Afterward, as the family walked home, silence hung heavy in the air. Obire's face was tense, and he barely looked at Uri and her daughters. Titi sensed the disappointment emanating from him, and she felt a pang of sympathy for her co-wife. who had tried so hard to gain his approval. Once they reached home, Obire finally broke the silence. "Uri," he said, his voice thinned, "I understand your desire for your daughters to be respected, but there are tradition ways we must honor. A family's strength lies in knowing its place, its role. That dance, it was not meant for daughters," Obire said. Uri's face dropped, his words shattering the fragile hope she had held on to. "Obire, my husband," she said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "My daughters are strong. They desire a place in this family's pride, not hidden in the shadows." Obire shook his head, dismissing her words. "Strength comes in many forms, Uri. Respecting tradition is one of them." Uri turned away, her heart a storm of frustration and sadness. In the days that followed, she withdrew, a quiet determination replacing the bitterness that had once filled her heart. She resolved to focus on her daughters, to give them the confidence that Obire would not. Titi watched all this with a heavy heart. Feeling the fraction in the family deepened, she knew that Obire's household stood at a crossroad. She could see that Uri's silent determination was far from fading. It was growing, taking root and becoming a force of its own. Titi, torn between loyalty to her mother and the bond she felt with her half-sisters, often visited Uri and her daughters in secret. She would sit with Onomeogenemine and Ogenero, listening to their dreams and sharing stories. She admired their strength and courage, understanding more each day the silent struggle they faced. Efe and Ochuko too felt the growing divide, though they didn't fully understand it. They had been raised to believe they were the heirs of the family legacy, and their father's words had reinforced this view. Yet, see the silent determination in their half-sisters' eyes began to stir questions they had never asked themselves before. Over time, Obire's household went on as usual, but the quiet tension had changed something deep. Uri's daughter grew in confidence, their mother's silence strength a guiding light. Anomo Titi, caught between her mother and her half-sisters, began to understand that the bond of family were more complicated than she had once thought. In the land of Umutor, Obire's household became a story of silent strength, with two women and their children, each trying to find their place in a world caught between traditions and change. The unity they once shared seemed like a distant memory. Yet, beneath the surface, new paths were being carved. New understanding formed. Whether this will bring the family together or lead to further distance, only time will tell. And so the story of Obire, Titi, Uri and their children would continue, with the promise of change lingering in the air. A change that would one day shape the destiny of not only the family, but perhaps the whole land of Umutor. So, my dear listeners, do you think this kind of lifestyle still exists? Or has it been long forgotten by our fathers? Let me know your own opinion in the comment section. Please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share with your family and friends, and please turn on the notification bell to stay updated. Thank you very much for watching. See you in my next episode.